NIALL Kenny is an open water marathon swimmer and a Cork native. But most importantly, he is the man behind the campaign for a Lido in Cork. He joined me recently to explain what a Lido is and why Ireland's second city so badly needs and deserves one. So welcome, Niall, to the podcast, and tell me straight off how you got interested in swimming. I believe you grew up in Cork City.
I did. Thank you for the invite, Siobhán. I grew up in Bishopstown in the early 70s, and we were dragged to a swimming pool. My dad had access to the North Mon swimming pool. He had the key because he was a teacher there.
Right.
So we started there and we were dumped in, swim, there you go. And we graduated then to Dolphin in Douglas, and that was the nearest pool to us. So we did competitive, myself and my brother were of similar age, and we did competitive swimming till we were about 15 in Dolphin, but no facility in Bishopstown. So that was my background, and then that was all pool swimming and galas and competitions. And you get to an age where that didn't run as a 16-year-old boy. You don't, yeah. It wasn't the thing. But I always kept swimming, always enjoyed the non-competitive side. So we'd always go to the beach. Our summers were spent in Kerry, so we always had a beach on our doorstep. And it's only 8 years ago I got back into swimming after about a 30-year gap, I suppose.
And now you do open water, do you?
And now we do open water swimming and a long distance marathon swimming now, as well as thrown in. So we have, through our company, we sponsored an open water swimming event, which is the Rebel Plunge. So that was in 2016. And I didn't swim at the time, but we went down the day to have a look because we were sponsoring. And when I saw kids as young as 14 or 15 doing a 3.9k swim in open water, I said, I have to do that. So next year, name went down, sponsored again, turned up on the day, and that was my first open water long swim.
And tell me about the Rebel Plunge. Where does that go from?
So it started at the Port of Cork sign on Custom House Quay, and swims down river to Blackrock Rowing Club, just before Blackrock Castle. So it's 3.9 kilometres tide assisted.
That's 3.9 over and back?
No, just down. You're going down river.
So I didn't
so it's a
realise
point
so
to point.
Far. Yeah.
And so you swim down past Port of Cork and along the marina. It's a very pleasant swim. And you get a lot, because it's tidal, you're getting a push down when the tide's going out. And you get a combination of mix of river water and salt water, seawater, which is lovely. It's quite refreshing.
Is it clean enough?
Oh yeah. 2015, I think that the city council piped everything, they recapped everything going into the river, and they piped it down into the harbour. So so from, I suppose, Mahon, Monkstown, all that area, the Loch Mahon is all fairly clean.
Good.
And then in 2019 they finished the last end of it, so it's gone to a pump house far in the cove on the far side of the harbour. So all the way down now is nice and clear. And that was my first one, well, it was my second marathon swim. So a marathon swim is 10k plus, anything over 10 kilometres. So I swam from the Port of Cork sign to Cove to the Titanic Museum.
Wow.
So it was a 16k. And that was a lovely day too. So you get to see the Blackrock Castle and the whole through Loch Mahon and down past the ferry, around towards Spike, and then it was lovely.
Wow, magnificent. So you definitely know the value of swimming in Cork Harbour, and now you're on a mission to give us Lido, which in layman's terms really is an outdoor pool, I guess.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about the origins of the whole Lido concept? Is that a Roman thing, or where does that come from?
Well, the word Lido originally is Italian origin. It was coming from beach, essentially. So having water access at the beach, and they were bringing it inland. So a lot of the original pools, they used to have a beachfront sand brought in, which they've done again now since in the Seine in Paris a couple of years ago. They bring in a Lido on one of the canals, and they dump 150 tons of sand along the marina next to the Lido, so they have that whole beach effect as well.
Right.
So that's kind of where it stemmed from, is just opening it up to the public, so people had, like in the city, had access to a safe swimming facility, essentially. So you're not swept away with the tide. So kids of all ages and elderly and those who aren't strong swimmers would have at least access to get in, practice and keep fit. And that's it's so it stemmed from back 1800s, I think. And then there was a huge resurgence in the 1930s between European cities, and even in the UK there was a huge upsurge. I think there's 140 Lidos in the UK at the moment.
At the moment?
Yeah, of various sizes, and there used to be more. I mean, London alone has 16 of dedicated swimming areas. Now they're all different styles and levels of. So one of them would be like I think it's Shepherd's Bush. It's actually a pond, and they've marked it off with buoys rather than a formal structure. And then you have all the original, say, like Saltine is an Art Deco one. There's one in Penzance, which is their real 1930s Art Deco style, and they've kept that. And so they all become heritage projects. And some of them are now getting heritage status, and they're being brought back, where before they would have been filled in, bulldozed, and some complex gone up.
And I think they're very trendy in the UK now as well, to say you're going
popular.
off to the Lido on a Saturday and meeting your friends for lunch in the cafe and the whole thing.
A lot of that, they say every cloud has a silver lining, and we can thank COVID for that to a certain degree, because what happened was every leisure centre closed. That's every indoor pool, everything. So you had no choice. And at least in the UK, they had a choice. The Lido was still allowed open because they were outdoors. You had that no close contact, indoor air and all that. And so they've seen a huge resurgence in the last 3 or 4 years on the back of that. And I suppose where possible, everybody went to a river or a beach. Now I live out the back road to Macroom near the reservoir. So I had the reservoir on my doorstep, which was lovely. Except during the winter when it was when it's 5 degrees, and not my thing. But so there are people who then now swim all year round because of COVID, because it's outdoor. It's that whole healthy feeling and fresh, and you're not cooped up in chlorine.
And tell me though, did Ireland ever have that Lido culture, that outdoor baths culture? I know we hear talking about the Clontarf baths and the Dunleary baths. And
yeah, there was, because I mean, Cork City had the Lee baths. I mean, that was built in 18 something. They only closed it in 1986. It was a 50 yard or 56 yard pool. And that had a huge following. I mean, there's old photographs from the Examiner and the Echo showing how popular that was during the summer.
And why did it close, do you remember?
1980s was a recession.
Tough time in Cork. I remember it well. Fords and Dunlops closing, and a lot of things going to the wall.
My father-in-law would have been one of them. But they would have used that cuts were made on everything that was considered
not essential. Yes, and unfortunately that was very short-sighted.
And when they do that, then it sort of coincided then as well when people started taking foreign holidays. They were going to Spain on cheaper, to Tenerife and all of that. So they were using that as their excuse to fund the pool anymore, which meant it was getting into a state of disrepair. It wasn't being repaired. It wasn't being worked on. The water was turning, and then so nobody was going. And they were using the fact of people going on foreign holidays as their excuse not to do this. And it was a vicious circle. And so it got to a stage where it was manky. You couldn't swim in it. So they drained it, they knocked it, and they sold it. And now there's a big, lovely hotel sitting on the site. So, but there is a small open water public pool in Carrignavar, which is like 20 metres long. It's a small, but it's only open 4 months of the year. And
is that on a lake or?
No, the purpose built. It's an actual swimming pool.
Outdoor?
In solid concrete, yeah.
Wow, that's one I didn't even know about.
Yeah. So that and you had Clontarf, you had Dún Laoghaire Baths, which is another travesty. They fill that in with concrete and still call it Dún Laoghaire Baths, with an 18 million statue of somebody on a pier.
And another very trendy place to have your lunch, but you can't swim at all.
You can't swim. And they were along, I mean, Bray and all the way up along, there was dotted pools along, because they had, the East Coast was lovely. It was calm. It didn't have that whole Atlantic blowing in on you. But that said, Belmullet has an outdoor tidal pool.
I saw it on the
popular
website. You directed me to, which we'll talk about in a minute. And absolutely stunning.
Yeah, it's a basic 4 concrete walls, and let's tide in, let's tide out, nice, clean and tidy. Maintained by a voluntary committee locally, because apparently it's a huge tourist draw. Because Lido tourism is quite big. I mean, I went to Copenhagen to swim in a Lido. I mean, that's I'm not saying that's how sad I was, but it's there.
Well, that's what swimmers do, Niall, and I think that's the beauty of it. When you're caught by the bug, you want to experience it in all different places. Yeah,
that's like my long distance swims. I did Fascinate last year now as well. So like that, you have to try everything once. So that was nice. From Fascinate Island into Baltimore.
Absolutely, and we've covered it here on the podcast with Steve Redmond and the guys, and I think it's becoming ever more popular, and as is outdoor swimming anyway. So now you want to get a Lido back in Cork City.
Well, Cork City is the second biggest city in the country. We don't have a 50-metre pool, indoor or outdoor. I mean, you have to go to Limerick. It's ridiculous. You don't have access to the river anywhere within the city, because they've built all walls up, or they've locked gates, and so even if, apart from swimming, if you had to want to launch a small boat, you had to go to Monkstown.
Right.
I mean, for a city that's got the second biggest natural harbour in the world, it's got 2 canal streams in it, it's got its own little island, there's plenty of water there, and yet we have no access to it.
It's a shame.
Which is a travesty.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at every other city that has on a river, they've embraced it.
Yes.
And that's all I'm asking, is that they take that maritime culture that we've had for years. They've always had it. The boats used to come all the way up to Cork Quay. The Lee Swim started back in 1890 or early 1900s. So, and it's ongoing now in its new format for the last 15 or 16 years. So if we just encourage more of that, and you'd get more participation in more events if people learned to swim in a safe environment. If they had access to a Lido on the river, to say, right, then you could get acclimatized to the river water, then you risk training, and you'd risk then doing your Lee Swim or your Ironman, which is getting, so like you all had the Ironman. It's there, you could bring it to the city. There is plenty of scope, and you're missing out on opportunities like that by not having a facility where people can train. But we're not just looking for the pool on its own. We want to build a community hub, essentially, to bring people together. And swimming is one of the best ways to do that.
And tell me a little bit about the campaign itself. When it kicked off, who's involved, and what kind of timeline have you got?
All right, I suppose I started this on my own, 5 years ago. But I started, and the guys, I wanted to get a 50-metre pool in Cork. Mm-hmm. Because I had read an article where from a city council meeting back in 2007, where the city engineer, basically, they were questioning at a council meeting whether Cork should have a 50-metre pool back in 2007. They asked the head engineer in city council what his thoughts were, and he said it's an elitist sport, and it couldn't justify it, and that anybody who wanted to participate in that could go drive to Limerick.
Well, it's not elitist anymore, for a start.
but to have that attitude that we'll farm it out. So you have kids who are trying to learn to swim or trying to do long course, who want to participate in the Olympics and be the next Daniel Whiffen. They now have to drive an hour and a half to Limerick on a good day with no motorway, and an hour and a half. So you're dedicating, your parents taking time out to do that for an hour session, when you've got 3 pools in, 3 50-metre closed pools in Dublin. You've 3 up north indoor pools. And so that's where I started. I wanted a 50-metre pool. whether it was going to be indoors or outdoors at the time. It wasn't an issue. I just wanted, we reckon, get a 50-metre pool. And then I went to Copenhagen on a lads' weekend, and we picked Copenhagen because it had Lidos. And I came back and we then concentrated on Lidos because cost-wise, they weren't going to build another Bertie Bowl in Cork.
Exactly.
And that was also another stick that the council were using to say no, because the Bertie Bowl costs $1 million a year but it's a white elephant of a thing anyway, and it was built wrong and it was rushed, and it was, so that was 25 years ago when they built it. So it's far more cost effective now. There's more technology, the heating is different, the pumps are different, it could be done right. And if you do it indoors or outdoors, it's not going to be another Bertie Bowl, but you've got to cross that.
But it's a lot cheaper, is it, to do it outdoors, because you have the water is provided to you on your doorstep.
So it gives you that chance, whether you want it heated or not heated. It gives you, like, you have, say, Clontarf, for an example, they don't heat their water during the winter and they do ice swimming, so they have competitions for ice. So it brings in a different level of swimmer, but it means they can then stay open all year round. If you do it in Cork, what I would love is have a heated option and a plunge pool option where you go straight to the river water as well. There's a beautiful example in Helsinki of where they have a deck out in it to the harbour along the quayside. They've got a tank pool floating that's clean water, it's got a base on it, and it's heated to 20 odd degrees. And then they have a kiddie pool, and then they have a plunge pool which is the size of this room, but it's directly to the river. So in the middle of winter they do their ice swimming there, and they still have the warm heat as well. So they cover all their bases.
But even if you didn't have the heated water and you had warm showers, it would still be a much better attraction than what we have now, which is drive down to Myrtleville, walk onto the beach and come home frozen.
But now Myrtleville's got a sauna.
Well, a lot of places have a sauna, and we can.
In the Scarrow Reservoir now has a sauna every Sunday morning.
Yeah.
So,
but again, they're not permanent. At any time they can go.
Yeah.
Not provided by the council.
No.
Luckily, private enterprise have stepped up there. But it would be lovely if our local authorities would provide something like that and see the benefits, I suppose, from a health point of view.
From the city council, we approached them a couple of times back originally, and then I floated the idea of the Lido being an outdoor on the river. And we got a positive response. I was at a chamber, I was on the board of Cork Chamber, and we were at a meeting with Anne Doherty, who's CEO of City Hall, and her son is a swimmer, I believe. But so I asked a question where City Council thought on at this stage, given where they were in 2007, how would they feel about a river version? And she said she'd be all for it. And in fairness, she gave me a contact for the head engineer and the Director of Economic Development in the City Hall. And we sat down, we had an honest and frank discussion, and it would be part of the plan.
But part of the plan is a long way from we're ready to go, here's the money, and where are we going to put it? So.
There was never an offer of money.
Right. But surely now there must be grant aiding and funding schemes.
There are structures. There's
because of the health benefits at the very least.
No, there's Jack Chambers at one stage asked Swim Ireland, who are the NGO, to do a survey of pool stock in Ireland. They were offering grant aids for pools to stay open and all that as well during COVID. So they know the health benefits, and at the moment there's a grant available, I think up to the 17th of May or 14th of May for local swimming spots or communities to put their little sauna or their bath or their accessibility.
We're talking about that in the paper this week, actually. Yeah.
So those grants are available. But what we'd be looking at, they're reopening the Sports Infrastructure Fund this year. So we should qualify for that, which would mean that would give us the bulk of the 10 million we need.
Right. So have you done a little bit of research into the costings?
I have. I've just briefly through through Future Lidos, when we set up this website.
Yeah, that's futurelidos.org if anyone wants to have a look at it.
And
very comprehensive site. Some great research and background.
There's been huge work done on that. I mean, it covers every aspect that you want, from putting your plan together, deciding what you're doing, heritage or new project, builds, where you want to put it, and you get all that. So you're not reinventing the wheel. So on the back of that, then you got information on costings and what's available out there, and heating and what you can do. And the beauty of it, it's all those pools that are already open have also contributed, and they've all been open and frank, say, yes, we do X, Y, and Z, and it works for us, and then someone else would say, we do ABC. At least you then have options. So I did a few facts and figures, and we were looking at probably around 10 million to get the ball rolling.
Right.
Now, in that, you'd get a 50-meter pool, you'd get a deck area, you could build your hub where you have possibly a bike shop, or you rent out unit spaces. It doesn't always have to be a cafe, it doesn't always, but you have your saunas, or you have your Pilates room, or your health and well-being, or anything that would complement that to bring people in. And then you have your hub. There's another beautiful example is Sea Lanes in Brighton opened a 50-meter pool on the beach, and they have a village built around it. So they have a cycle repair shop, they have an outdoor activity shop, like say Mountain Land, for example, and they have a holistic therapies clinic, they have the saunas, steam rooms. So you should see, it's beautiful.
So the next biggest question is, where would you put it?
Well, as it happens, City Council they've purchased Kennedy Quay and Horgan's Quay from Port of Cork, with the view that both quays are going to be, Kennedy Quay already has O'Callaghan Properties taking over, so they're building housing, like a little towers, village nearly, an urban village. 20,000 people moving in there. So, and there's a new bridge apparently planned to go across the river to the railway station onto Horgan's Quay. So they're going to develop Horgan's Quay as a promenade as well, all the way down, because the plan is that Tivoli Docks, as it stands, will be made into a village as well, because that's where they're moving everything to Ringaskiddy. But they won't do that till the motorway to Ringaskiddy is finished, which is 2027, they hope.
Okay. Things are being pushed out a little bit now, but okay.
No, but those promenades now are part of the development plan for the city centre.
So you have your eye on one of those, have you?
We've been earmarked a water facilities section on Horgan's Quay. And
you're in there.
I'm in that
your
mix.
name's on the table for that one,
very
for
much
sure.
So, yeah. So where on Horgan's Quay we don't know yet, because it will depend on whether that bridge goes ahead or not. It was a pedestrian rail bridge with no car access. But part of the plan was the existing road that's there is going to move into where the old loading docks were for the railway station, so that the road that's there is all going to be cycle lanes and promenade and all that. So you have space then to build your little village.
Yeah.
So that's the plan. Time frame, probably another 5 years.
Well, that wouldn't even be too bad, really,
no,
since you're only at it 5 years.
Yeah,
10-year start to finish would be great.
Put it this way, Dunleary were 18 years and they still didn't get a hole in the round.
Exactly. And tell me, what can, the public, the average person do to support you now? Because I think definitely any swimmer in the south of Ireland would be very excited at the idea of this.
We've been lucky. We've got over 2,000 on our Facebook page, which is...
and what's the Facebook page now?
Cork Lido CLG.
Cork Lido CLG.
And we're on Twitter as well at Cork Lido, and on Instagram at cork.lido.
Right.
And I only started Instagram recently because it's just adding to my repertoire, but we've nearly 2,000 on Twitter, over 2,000 on Facebook. All mostly swimmers, all active, and we have full support as well from Swim Ireland, which is great. So.
And political support, you mentioned Jack Chambers, you mentioned the City Council. Is there any other high-profile politicians from Cork that have come on board?
Yeah, we had a very positive meeting 4 weeks ago with Ivana Bacik from Labour leader. And she's very much in favour, as she had spent her time growing up here in Cork.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that.
Understands where
West
we're
Cork
coming from.
and Sunday as well, I think, yeah.
Yeah, so she's been very supportive. And I suppose from everybody else's point, we've had like Simon Coveney and Micheál Martin and Michael McGrath, all being Cork, are all aware of it, and I've met all of them, and they know where I am. And so we've been back and forth over the years with them, which is great. And even Jerry Buttimer as well, who I would have grown up with in Bishopstown. And his younger brother was in school with my brother. So Cork is very small.
It all helps.
It all helps. But it does. It does. So we push the point that, look, Cork's second city, we need something.
Yeah.
So they're all very much in favour, which is great.
And I mean, do you have to do any fundraising as such, or is that on a kind of a macro scale, the fundraising, rather than having a raffle or a pub quiz?
No, we're not at the funding stage yet. I think till we get allocated an exact spot on the river.
Right.
Then we look for funding to do our architectural plans and whatnot, and then apply for funding then for the build.
Yeah.
And I think that's the next step, and that's where we're at. So for people to help, given that we're in a year that there's local council elections happening.
That's right.
I would ask if they doorstep you to ask where
and maybe even your European election candidates. No harm. Yes. I'm sure there's funds in Europe that could help.
We had a great meeting with Grace O'Sullivan.
Right.
She's the Green MEP.
Yep.
Recently opened up an office in Cork as well. And we had a breakfast meeting with her. She went on the river with, the stand-on boards.
Paddleboard?
Yeah. And had a big Lido sign over her head down at the Port of Cork sign for me, which was lovely.
Brilliant. So, we need more of that.
So more of that. And and she made a point, and I think it doesn't just have to be the city. I mean, every town could qualify for one.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it should be everywhere. If you go to Hungary, there's a 50-metre pool in every city.
Yeah.
There's no excuse.
And it's a no-brainer in the days when health, well-being, the outdoors are so important.
There's plenty of articles out there and medical journals stating that cold water swimming or any swimming is essentially very good for you. It'll cut your health bill as well. So I mean, the HSE alone would benefit by people if they, rather than prescribing drugs, subscribing to go swimming every 20 minutes for 20 minutes every day.
Yeah, I think it has actually been used in many places as a method of therapy for depression. And also, don't forget, the tourism element would be huge because, as you and I know, we do travel. I was in Iceland in November to swim with the local women on the beach. You were in Copenhagen. We love to go and swim somewhere different. Yeah. So don't underestimate the power for the tourism sector as well.
It's hugely popular. I mean, we have an outdoor swim calendar. I think there's 15 swims in Munster alone of various lengths. And the Lee Swim has like 500 swimmers. The Rebel Plunge has 200 to 250 swimmers every year. And some of them have cut-offs due to insurance and the like, but you're consistently getting in excess of 300 to most swims.
Yeah.
And it's funny, we go to look at, we have friends in Australia, and there's one swim outside Brisbane and they have 5,000.
Wow.
Can you imagine trying to orchestrate that?
Yeah.
And they have 5,000 one day for a whole swim to go point to point.
I know, but as you say, such a beautiful, natural, deep harbour that we have in Cork, we should be making more of it. So now's the chance. So just give us the names again of the websites, the futurelidos.org.
Futurelidos.org is a great place to see what we're aiming for, where we're going. Then our Facebook page is Cork Lido. Our Instagram is cork.lido, and our Twitter is Cork Lido.
Great. Well, now thank you for joining me today.
No bother.
And best of luck. And I hope to be there within the next 5 years for a swim at the Cork Lido.
And final point, if any corporate fancies naming rights, be it supervalue.lido, I don't care. I'd be quite happy to have that chat.
All right. Okay, we're putting it out there so for anyone to come on board. And get in early because it'll be popular to get your name associated with that, I think. So thanks very much, Niall.
Thanks for listening to the Southern Stars from A to C podcast series. This episode was produced and presented by Southern Star editor Siobhán Cronin and edited by me, Dylan Mangan. This was the lucky 13th episode focusing on sea swimming, so if you enjoyed it, please be sure to check out our other 12 episodes with people like underwater cameraman Ken O'Sullivan, 4 of the men behind the iconic Fastnet swim, and the incredible swimming women of Iceland. For stories like this and more, visit southernstar.ie/podcasts, where you can swim through previous episodes, and be sure to pick up a copy of this Thursday's newspaper in shops across West Cork or online via subscribe.southernstar.ie. Please rate, review and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts to make sure you don't miss any future episodes, and we'll be back again very soon. Thanks for listening.